it was really hard to go to work and do my job learning about one lines and the code, and then study for the FE where I was talking about you were talking about computer systems and calculus, which is all well and good, but it was like my brain was doing this. I'm not always able to put in 20 hours a week. Sometimes I'm only able to put in 15. So I knew I had to pace myself, and I was going to give myself the time I needed. But what I told myself was, aside from those few gaps, was even if I only gave you just a few minutes a day, I would give those to you. Casting a wide net, looking at a problem from an equation, from a circuit, and from a phasor diagram, being able to, because the exam is not going to be plug and chug. Every one of them is going to be convoluted. So your advice to try to look at a problem from all different angles and casting a wide net, your search for knowledge is definitely key.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning.
How's it going?
It is going fantastic. It's another beautiful day here.
Yes, in Alaska, right? It's what, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning?
5:47.
5:47. You are an early bird.
I am a morning person. I think the oil business did that to me. I used to be a night owl, but it broke years ago.
Really. And especially in summertime, right? In north in Alaska, like the days are very, very long. When is the sunrise?
I mean, the sun. I mean, right now it's kind of it looks there's like a grayness outside. It almost never really truly gets dark in the summer. Like last night, I was trying to put my daughter to bed, and I felt kind of bad for her because I kind of thought, even though we got the blinds on, blackout blinds, that it's still a little bit light in that room, and I wonder how do you sleep? But that's how I grew up.
Right, right. No, I understand that. And when it comes to winter time, the sun never gets out, right?
Yeah, you got to
So,
take your vitamin D if you want to
right.
compensate for that.
That's Yeah, it's tricky. Congratulations, Patrick, on wonderful achievement. You were here a few months ago on my channel. We discussed your FE electrical exam prep strategy, which you passed in the first attempt with me. And now here we are talking about your PE Power success story. What was the time gap between your FE? When did you pass your FE?
I passed my FE this March. No, last March. I'm sorry.
Last March, yes. Yeah. So that was in 2023. And you passed your PE Power in May 2024?
February 3rd.
Oh,
That was
February. Okay,
yeah,
February. So almost a year, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
It's been fast and furious.
yes, I mean that's amazing. Both of these were first attempts, and you got them done within a matter of a year. So, what was different between your FE approach and your PE approach, if there was any difference?
So the FE, I still hadn't quite figured. I was still new to you. I didn't do the live training for FE, and also my notes were a lot more disorganized. With the PE, by that time, there was a couple of things. I'd really streamlined my process. How do I take notes? I also did your live training. I did that 2 full sessions actually. Um, and then I also adapted a little bit of a different mindset. When I was doing the FE, it was really hard to go to work and do my job learning about one lines and the code, and then study for the FE where I was talking about you were talking about computer systems and calculus, which is all well and good, but it was like my brain was doing this. But when I finally studied or was studying for the PE, things became a lot more harmonized. So I didn't feel like I was splitting myself between two babies. Everything was in line, and things that I would learn about with you in the morning or in the evening, carried right over into my day at work, and it made things, even though it was a lot of work, in a lot of ways, it also made things a lot easier. So that was the mindset I adapted.
No, that's great. And I remember us discussing about sort of a career transition you took, you made because of COVID, and you have worked in a couple of different industries, and your current role is most um, aligned with power systems engineering, right? You're using codes and standards, you're sizing equipment, and applying a lot of things that we learn in the PE Power exam preparation. How did you manage time, Patrick? If I remember, from your FE electrical interview, as you mentioned earlier, you're a morning person now, right? So how did you schedule your day? You also have a family, full-time job, and you've been out of school for some time as well. It's not that you just graduated yesterday, right? So how did you um, optimize your daily routine?
I mean, I most of the time I spent with you were on the bookends of each day for the business days. I wake up, get my morning coffee, kind of get my head right, and I started studying with you. And then usually it was sometime after that, my wife wakes up, and then we work out and we start getting the kids ready for where they need to be. And then I get myself ready and I go to work for the day. Come home, and then I have to, we have to deal with dinner and meals. Uh, and usually when I get everyone else settled, then I would spend my time with you. And so it was in the bookends of each day. Saturdays and Sundays, I would wake up usually about the same time I would on a work day, and get as many hours with you as possible, either doing the on demand or the live, and try to get as much done before noises started happening and they started waking up. And I would try to give whatever time I could. Taking my daughter to dance or piano lesson. Trying to do something fun with the family that weekend, whether it's church or whatever. Um, but when but I really didn't give myself any just sort of me time. If I had extra time on the weekend, it was putting hours in with either the on demand or the live training. And the live training I would do, I never attended a live session. It was always from the archives, because then I could do it, when I could find those windows, and I could listen to you at 1.5 speed. So that really helped.
And the time difference was quite a bit as well, right? Because the live trainings were being conducted on Saturdays and Sundays, 10 a.m. EST, and you are in the Alaska time, right? So that's
Yeah,
five
I mean,
hours
getting up
before.
early wouldn't have been so bad. It's just that
Okay,
it's like I'm trying to fit you into the windows that I have. So
right,
watching
right,
it after the fact, was allowed me to go at my own speed.
right. And you went through 2 rounds, right? You mentioned.
I did. When I finished the on demand, I try to do a little bit in parallel, but I always put the focus on the on demand. But at the end of the on demand content, I had this gut sinking feeling in me that I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, I don't remember anything," especially from what I started, months ago. So doing really, diving into the live training, and then the second time where I thought, okay, no, I do know this stuff, and that's what really started to tie it together. And a lot of those quizzes that had kicked my butt previously started making sense, and I started tying a few things together. When I finally went back to the basics and revisited things like per unit systems, phasor diagrams, and then especially fault analysis. Things started tying together. A lot of those problems that had confused me before, and especially what is it, the infamous number 18 of the practice exam. It started to things started to click.
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely helps going through the content a couple of times, especially if you're new to power systems or if you've been out of school for a long time. um, so in that sense it is helpful, but your timeline, if you can talk a little bit more about when you actually started preparing for the PE in 2023, and in between how did you pace yourself? So did you sustain this daily routine for, if I understand, almost 10 months, 11 months, or were there gaps in between or breaks in between as well?
The gaps were minor, so I took the FE exam, and with the expectation I would pass, I started studying for the PE that day. Um,
Really?
yeah, and I continued on, and there was really the only gaps I would take. I think there was Christmas, there was a camping trip I did, and we took the girls to the Disney World. So those were the only gaps I ever took. But the thing was, I mean, I know that there's like a what do you need to put in for the average person? 400 hours into this
Give
exam.
or take. Give or
Yeah,
take.
give or
Yeah.
take. But I'm not always able to put in 20 hours a week. Sometimes I'm only able to put in 15. So I I knew I had to pace myself, and I was going to give myself the time I needed. But what I told myself was, aside from those few gaps, was even if I only gave you just a few minutes a day, I would give those to you. And so it built that habit. So that's what kind of kept me focused and kept me, um, tied to this program.
No, that's great. That's extreme discipline. And to be honest, that's what's required to pass this exam comfortably. Because when your journey started with FE and you're putting in the time and effort, you kept that momentum going, and you did not necessarily have many advantages or unfair advantages in the sense that you didn't have past experience in the field. It's not that certain some of these concepts you had recently learned, so a lot of this stuff you were learning and at the same time simultaneously applying at your job, right? So what was required was exactly what you did. Laser sharp focus for an extended period of time. You didn't rush into taking the exam, you took your time, you went through the content a couple of times, and you were patient with your learning process. And I think that is, in my opinion, the biggest takeaway for folks who've been out of school for 10, 15 years and want to embark on this journey. Just remember that the fact of the matter is that it is going to be more difficult for you as compared to somebody who is just graduating. It's a fact, right? But you still can make it happen if you put in the time and effort, use effective exam prep resources, and execute the game plan properly. And Patrick's example, if you guys want to check out the FE interview that I did, feel free to do that. It's an amazing example, and I have so many students, Patrick, who are in similar scenarios like you. Obviously, I'm not interviewing every single student who's passing, but your story, there's perseverance, there's commitment, there's focus, there's discipline, and when you combine all of them, um, that's the result that you get. Would you leave any advice for folks who are watching this interview and sort of self-doubting, are on the fence whether they can make it happen or not? How would you motivate them? What would be your recommendation?
Well, I definitely, I would definitely say to anyone who wanted to pursue this, definitely listen to Wasim. I really can't add much to what you've said in your lectures previously, but you have your three pillars of understanding. Looking at a particular problem from um, casting a wide net, looking at a problem from an equation, from a circuit, and from a phasor diagram. Being able to, because the exam's not going to be plug and chug. Every one of them is going to be convoluted. So your advice to try to look at a problem from all different angles and cast enough wide net with your search for knowledge is definitely key. The only thing that I could really add, especially if you're older like me, is take take care of yourself. I'm pretty good about, for me personally, I'm pretty good about working out and eating right. My weak spot is I really need to focus more on my sleep. Sometimes things work, or this exam, it kept me up, or shortened my sleep frame. And, my wife really pushed me. You need to sleep, so you need to get yourself relaxed before you go to bed, so you can actually get a full night's sleep. That was my personal weakness. And I would definitely advise, take care of your body. I mean, your brain and your body are they're you can't separate those two. It's key if you want to do well in this exam and you run yourself into the ground. You're not doing yourself any favors. So I would say keep that in the back of your mind.
Especially when your journey is long, right? Especially when you are at it for many, many months. And to be honest, it's a great advice, something that gets overlooked. It's easy to sort of gain a momentum, a routine, and then just throw everything else sideways, and you just basically zero in on this one goal almost obsessively. But it can be counterproductive if you are not able to collect your thoughts on the exam, if you haven't been sleeping properly, if you are routinely getting sick, your immune system is getting damaged, right? You're picking up cold every now and then. So all of these things will sort of cast, challenges and obstacles are going to come in your way. So great advice, Patrick. And once again, many congratulations. It's great to have you on my channel again, and it was great being part of your P licensing journey.
Believe it or not, I actually miss our routine. There was I did feel like there was a little bit of a hole in my routine, but taking that out of my daily schedule.
Yeah, fill that up with me time. Fill that up with time with family and friends, and enjoy the summer in Alaska. And I'm confident that with this attitude, you're gonna do immensely well in your career ahead. Okay,
Well, thank you, Wasim, and thank you for everything.
thanks a lot. Take care. If you like this video, then please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comment section of this video below. You can find tons of success stories of my FE Electrical and PE Power students over here. And if you want to learn more about preparation of FE Electrical and Computer exam and the PE Power exam, then check out these playlists over here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next video.